So the third and last chapter in emerging adulthood is psychosocial development. And of course, this is a stage of continuity and change at the same time. There's a search for identity begins in puberty and continues much longer, with seeking to determine who they still are and still exist for most adults. And at each stage, the outcome of earlier crises provides the foundation for the next stage. Remember, Erickson was different than Freud in that you could still keep moving even though you may have what he called issues, psychosocial crises in that stage. In the 8 stages of Erickson development, Erickson associated each stage with a particular virtue and type of psychopathology. He proposed that earlier crises could reemerge, taking a specific form at each stage. So listed on the next slide, you'll see some possible problems, not directly associated from Erickson, but these can occur in emerging adulthood if earlier crises are not resolved. So trust, for example, versus mistrust in the first stage. The virtue and pathology is hope versus withdrawal. And possible emerging adulthood problems could be suspicious of others, making close relationships difficult, etc. So for your information to look through those. And of course, during adulthood, this particular stage, it's intimacy versus isolation. The virtue is love. And the pathology is exclusivity or jealousy. Things that can emerge include anxiousness about close relationships, jealousy, and loneliness. Aspects of identity change as the historical context changes, even in the search for self-determining continues. Intermarriage between adults from diverse racial groups in the United States has changed from 7% in 1980, and it's over doubled to 2010 to 15%. Children are typically proud to be biracial. Bicultural identity correlates with healthy psychosocial development. Many emerging adults work to combine objective and subjective identities, so they're one unified identity. Ethnicity plays a key role in preparation for adulthood. Most emerging adults identify with a specific ethnic group. More than one other age group, emerging adults have friends from diverse backgrounds. So this is the big difference between this stage and earlier stages. Ethnic identity may be affected by, may affect the choice of language, the manners, the type of romance, type of employment, where you live at, your religious choices, clothing, and even values. Establishing a vocational identity is part of growing up too. Many go to college as a moratorium and to prepare for a job. Temporary jobs are part of preparation. Young workers tend to take a series of temporary jobs and feel no loyalty to their employer in reaction to the current global economy. Development of work ethics continues to evolve throughout early adulthood. John Holland's 6-part diagram helps job seekers realize that income and benefits are not the only goal of employment. Workers have healthier hearts and minds if their jobs fit their personal preferences. Personality and changes in early adulthood too. Only a minority experience declines in self-esteem. And you can see from the diagram, it keeps going up higher and higher for both men and women. Continuity and attitudes as young adults occur, and the ability to set their own goals, make their own friends, and work toward whatever goals they seek strengthens their self-esteem. Worrisome children grow up. Many children with marked aggression and those with extreme shyness grow up with little pathology. Old patterns do not disappear completely, but behaviors are often modified. Increasing self-esteem in many emerging adults occurs as they're able to set their own goals, make their own friends, and work toward whatever goals they seek without the influence of family or parents. Plasticity refers to the fact that many children with marked aggression, those with other extreme personalities, can change. Personality is not fixed by age 5 or 15 or 20, and openness to new experiences often allows personality shifts and stimulates eagerness for more education. The issue to remember was intimacy versus isolation. Intimacy progresses from attraction to close connection to ongoing commitment. Marriage and parenthood, as emerging adults are discovering, often occurs and are only two of several paths to intimacy. Friendships last throughout the lifetime. Our friends defend against stress and provide joy. They help you live longer. Friends new and old are particularly crucial during emerging adulthood. Most single adults have larger and more supportive friend networks than newly married young adults once did, but that's the issue of having more time. Men tend to share activities and interests and talk about external matters, but do not talk about failures or emotional problems generally. Demand less of their friends, so they have more of them. Women tend to share secrets, reveal their weaknesses and problems, and expect sympathy. They're more intimate and emotional, and so they may have less friends. Male friendships are interesting. Relationships between love and marriage depend on the era and the culture. Three patterns occur roughly in thirds: arranged marriages, adolescents meeting selected groups, and a man asks a woman's parents for permission, and people socialize with many and then fall in love and marry when they're able. This is most common in Western cultures. Robert Sternberg talks about the dimensions of love. It's an interesting triangle, even though it doesn't hold a lot of empirical water. Each aspect of the triangle affects the types of loving relationship that you have. Passion, of course, is the intense physical, cognitive, and emotional aspect. Intimacy is knowing someone well and sharing secrets. And commitment, usually growing gradually, the decision to be together, to give mutual care, to keep secrets, share possessions, and forgiveness. And of course, you can have one, two, or all of these, or none of these. There are different types of love depending on which aspect. You have to imagine this is a triangle. So for example, if you have no passion but you have intimacy and no commitment, it's called liking somebody. That's on one end. An empty marriage is just commitment, no passion or intimacy. A companionate love may happen later in life. It's be no passion but commitment and intimacy, and of course consummate love would be all of the above. Some people prefer different types of commitments. So hookups involve sexual encounters with neither intimacy nor commitment. They estimated that about half of all emerging adults have hooked up, more common in younger college students than older, men and women, lonely than socially active. Social networks is another type of commitment, websites that allow users to publicly share their lives and connect with large numbers of people. The major innovation in the current cohort and choice overload involves having so many possibilities that a thoughtful choice becomes difficult. This may occur in matchmaking sites. And of course, men and women choose differently on even those. Cohabitation is one possibility. It varies from nation to nation, but involves living with an unrelated person, typically a romantic partner to whom one is married or not married. Prevalence among the United States, it's fairly common in US, England, Northern Europe, before the age of 25. Half of all cohabitant couples in the US plan on eventually getting married, which can be a source of friction too. This just looks at cohabitation between 1970 and 2010. It's gone up steadily over the years. Cohabitation, in cohabitation, many emerging adults consider it because it's an effective prelude to marriage, sort of like I've heard it said, like buying a car, taking it for a ride first. Early research suggests that cohabitation does not necessarily prevent later marriage problems. Churning relationships may evolve and often have high rates of verbal and physical abuse. More current research reports less negative cohabitation effects. Cohabitation is neither ideal nor the marriage equivalent that many emerging adults believe it would be. This looks at young adult relationships that are often problematic, but churning correlates with the stormiest relationships, with half of churners fighting both physical and verbally, so you can see the types of abuse. In the United States, there's been historical changing patterns. Most adults aged 20 to 30 are not married. Compared to any year in the past, fewer adults are married and more are divorced. Divorce rate is half the marriage rate, 3.6 to 7.3 thousand, because fewer people are getting married. Women who have their first baby under the age of 30 are more often unmarried than married. Previously, about 1/3 of the world's families, love does not lead to marriage because parents arrange marriages that join two families together. For 1/3 of families, adolescents meet only a selected group of young men and ask young women's fathers for their hand in marriage. Parents supervise interactions, like in the late 20th century or 19th century. The final pattern, relatively new. Young people socialize, meet many others, expect to fall in love, but not marry until independent. And that's over the course of a century or so. There are different types of relationships. Similarity tends to solidify commitment, probably because similar people are likely to understand each other. One of the aspects is called homogamy, marrying people that have similar socioeconomic status, goals, religion, etc. Heterogamy is marriage between people that are very dissimilar. And social homogamy means similar to couples' leisure interests and role preferences. So birds of a feather flock together. So this is something to think about. As women earn more money and men do more housework, increased shared responsibilities may increase marital satisfaction. Yes or no? Might be on the test. This looks at the difference between male and female victims. So intimate partners carry out far more homicides on women than men. Non-spousal family members are about the same. And acquaintances commit more murders on males than females. One of the problems with conflict is that people learn to listen. They demand and withdraw interactions. Situations in a romantic relationship wherein one person wants to address an issue and the other refuses. Women tend to be more demanding, men tend to be more withdrawing. So sometimes this turns into a vicious cycle of demand and withdraw. Intimate partner violence is a big problem in the United States. Emerging adults experience more partner violence over the last 25 years than those over 25, primarily because of alcohol and drug use. Sometimes it goes up with that. Rates are high and would be higher if self-deception and dishonesty weren't factors, but would be if preventable measures were in place. Researchers differentiate two forms of partner violence: situational couple violence and intimate terrorism. So fighting between romantic couples that is brought on more by the situation than a personality problem. Intimate terrorism, though, is violent and demanding form of abuse in a romantic relationship where the victim is too scared to fight back, seek help, or withdraw, and so they become really pretty much a prisoner. Sometimes the relationship between emerging adults and their parents is complicated. They have these things called linked lives, where the success, health, and well-being of each family member are connected to those of other family members. It can be good news and bad news. Could be because of financial support, where parents of all income levels in the U.S. help their adult children. And at a global perspective, parent support and linked lives are typical everywhere. In some countries, it's more valued than in others, like Italy versus Great Britain. You can see the increase in college tuition. Median household incomes between 1983 and 2013 has gone up dramatically, especially in public four-year schools. There are problems with parental support, and adults from low-income families are likely to remain within the socioeconomic status that they came from. Parents cannot pay for college and living expenses during emerging adulthood. There are some helicopter parents who hover over their emerging adult children, ready to swoop down if any problems arise, and it impedes the development of that individual. And then, of course, some of the weight that happens in all of this is causing sibling rivalry and resentment among the other peers. And with that, we'll wrap this up and move on to adulthood.